This is Check on Your Neighbor, an effort by the Rural Assembly and the Daily Yonder. Both the Yonder and Rural Assembly are part of the Center for Rural Strategies, and the first chairman of the board of Rural Strategies was Francisco Guajardo. I first met Frank when he was an innovative classroom teacher at Ed Couch Elsa along the border in South Texas. Today, he is the Chief Executive Officer of the Museum of South Texas History. So, Frank, how are you doing?
Hey, D, it's good to see you. Hey, listen, I did something the other day, and somebody from the community told me that I needed to smile more. That and so she said, "Hey, you posted something on your website. You're not smiling." And I thought, "Oh my God, I hope this morbidity is not like controlling me." And so I got to smile. But D, every time I see you, I just have to smile because I just have good thoughts of hanging out with you and other folks from Rural Strategies and from Apple Shop, and just good friends from doing good work together.
I know.
Hey, D, hang on for a second because Yvonne wants to say hello. This is she.
Hey,
D, haven't seen you in many years. How are you?
No, it's like it's too bad. I would have to. I was going to ask Frank if he's been dancing.
Yeah. Well, actually, this last year he took on a new, bigger role in our Nutcracker.
I was Drosselmeyer, but
yes.
I've been lobbying for Drosselmeyer, but they never gave it to me because I didn't look sinister enough. Is the word on the street?
You got there. You got there. It was because you didn't.
We were hard up. It was great to see you. Take care.
So this is the time we're checking on old pals, right? People who I remember that we met when there was I was serving as a consultant for a foundation, and they were trying to make sure that rural people understood how to use the technology, and they sent our gang down to meet you and to help you, and of course you didn't need much help.
I think that we didn't need help, telling our story. We clearly knew who we were. We know who we are, right? And so we celebrate ourselves. We celebrate our parents and our grandparents and our tios and tias and all that. But I'll tell you the one thing that we did need is that we needed to see models of how other people did it. So when we saw other things, and we met you guys, and you guys were talking like, that's interesting how these guys have built an institution and how they've spent so many years telling stories and then sharpening the storytelling skill. So we knew that we were storytellers, but we didn't know that we could be storytellers like this, and then see how actually you can create theater work. Actually, you can create an institute, and bring kids in. And I mean, all things that we could imagine, but what happened there meeting you guys is that we were able to shorten the learning curve.
And I remember just being knocked out by what was going on in the classroom. These kids who were the children of agricultural workers who were barely getting by and living a lot of the time on the road were all of a sudden going to Stanford and Rice and Harvard and Yale, and it was like, what is going on? I've been so interested in the way that people understand their communities as an asset and not as a deficit. And the thing that always comes back to me about Llano Grande Center and what you were doing in the school there at Egg Couch Elsa was this thing that you brought back with you from your studies in Britain. You had a summer program or some time at Oxford, right? And can you talk about that just a second?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parts to this story, D, because it needs to be contextualized. I had my own moment in my dorm room at Brasenose College one night when I was writing a paper on something. I don't know if it was Shakespeare or what, but as I was writing a paper, I I really, came to this moment where I thought, what I'm most interested in is really the stories of my father and my mother. And I think that it was a real moment for me in terms of changing my thinking in some ways. I mean, this was a progression, so it wasn't like the first time that I thought of it, but I was hit hard because I think of where I was, and because I think of the history, almost like the majesty of this institution, and thinking really what I want is the stories of a sheep herder, a goat herder, and the stories of a woman who never went to school a day in her life, my mother. And that was so removed, from what, say, educational attainment is typically seen as. And really the greatest educational attainment to me was the experiences of my father and my mother. And that was such a difference, I think, in worldview. And so for me, it wasn't about understanding the bard. It was about understanding the stories of my parents as a source of strength. So what are the influences, that make you? It's not Shakespeare. It's whoever raised you. Yes, we do not need to move away from our migrant farm working experiences. What we need to do is we need to be reflective about it. We need to own it, and we need to use it as a source of power, not move away from it. See, but the school would teach you, get away from Whitesburg, Kentucky, get away from, Hazard County, because that is the path to success. Actually, not so fast. And then you got to work with your organization, build it according to a particular set of values that makes sense to you, right? And then once we do that and we build a good infrastructure, and then we cultivate the talent, because you can't do this by yourself. You need a whole lot of people, right? This sort of collaborative piece of work, this community piece.
Were there some surprise stories that you learned?
I think one of the surprises to me that I wasn't completely clear about is that white folks and Mexican folks both love this community deeply, and that white folks and Mexican folks have been working together for a long time. So it's not an us versus them, D. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be an us versus them. And so many of the world functions that way, by these binaries that are biblical even. It doesn't have to be the binaries. We can figure ways out, and if we are, committed to being vulnerable, and committed to working together somehow and understanding our own stories. And so, I mean, that's one of my realizations.